always forget that you can hear the sounds when that is playing. The Golden State Warriors are off to the second round, but by God, it was not easy, as they pull out a hard-fought series win over the Houston Rockets. And a lot of times, if you were going to be talking about a Steph Curry series win and all of that, it would be, well, it was Curry came up big. And he did at times, but he is not the reason they won this seventh game. And that is why this Golden State team is a little bit more dangerous now than they have been kind of post KD. And I guess like post 2022 championship. With Jimmy Butler there now and some of the other additions that they made, this is a team that, I'm not going to say Steph had an off night, but if you just focus all of your powers on taking Steph away, they can still beat you. It is a lot more difficult for them to do it, but they can still beat you. And that is what happened here. First off, Jimmy Butler. And I know maybe his stat line isn't going to be the biggest one, but he came up with some absolutely massive shots. And it is his ability to score when he has a hand in his face and these contested opportunities against guys bigger than him. His ability to score in those situations that I think really helped them kind of ice this game away against Houston and ice this series away against Houston is what makes them so dangerous that you can have, it's like one of those like guys who are really good at 50-50 balls in the NFL where it's like, is it 50-50? Like if you have him covered, you don't really have him covered. That's kind of with Jimmy, where you can have him checked, but do you really? Because he can still hit a shot with you in his face. And he came up with a couple of those big ones late. It is a weapon that they haven't had since Poole and all. Like Wiggins could be that. And was that when they won that championship, which is why I think this Butler piece is important. It was that you could have this other scoring option that was so dangerous and was able to kind of put them over the top. Butler can be that with these guys. And I know that this part has been done to death, but the basketball IQ that he has that helps him kind of put everything together is... It fits with this whole team so very effectively. And you really do see where this team could be dangerous with him. But then it was some other guys who were massive, especially early on. I saw a clip leading into the day of Draymond Green and how he played in Game 7 against the Cavaliers before Cleveland kind of put that one away. But when, like in the early going of that game, it was Draymond who was putting up some big shots and making some big shots early. And he did that again here. Not a ton, but just enough that it kind of kept their heads above water because Houston was doing an excellent job of taking Steph Curry away. It was just Draymond and Hield, who we'll get to in a second, were lighting it up offensively. And again, just kind of keeping their heads above water, letting Steph work through whatever he needed to work through, force Houston to keep putting that pressure on him. We're just going to come over here, stay over here, and just kind of keep doing what we've been doing. And Green was great at that. And then Buddy Hield really set that tone early with how he was able to score the basketball. And that kind of quieted down as the game went on, but that was exactly what you needed. And again, you think of the 22 team, and I get there's no Klay Thompson on this group, but it was Wiggins who was able to make some shots. It was Poole who was able to make some shots. You had those guys who could contribute, so it wasn't just Steph. Again, it's a lot of Steph, and I'm not saying like Curry can just sit for 4 and Golden State's going to be fine. They are going to need Steph to play at an elite level in this series, but against Minnesota. But you at least don't have him having to carry everything now because of what these guys were doing. And it is why when we did the offseason previews a year ago, looking at it from the Raptor fan standpoint here, I really thought that he was a guy that maybe you could have brought in from a Raptor standpoint, build up that value and try to trade him. The problem was he already had a little bit of value and goes to a perfect situation out in Golden State. But when he is on, that is a very talented offensive guy and is really difficult to beat. And it does seem like he has kind of found his area with Golden State now. And the other part of it was defensively. Again, like he's not going to get Defensive Player of the Year votes ever, but he came up with a couple of big stops and at least a couple of pesky moments to hold up guys that allowed other players to make big stops. He was all around it and a very big part of this game. And then Curry, he is finally able to break free and put this game away late. And you could see the difference when Curry is being shut down and okay, well, we're up by 7, up by 9, whatever. And then Curry gets going and we're up by 19. That is the Steph Curry effect. We'll preview this in a little bit, but it's an interesting matchup now with Minnesota in the next round and a lot of fascinating kind of counterpoint when you break that series down. On the Houston side of this discussion, I you have to be impressed with this team, right? Like the youth that they have, the intensity that they played with, and to push Golden State to the seventh game is very, very impressive from them. And again, we will do off-season previews fully next week. But for now, looking at this, I think they have a like championship level foundation with what they have. And they are going to be a very, very popular Kevin Durant, Giannis Antetokounmpo organization when people are throwing trade machine trades together because they have a lot of stuff. They have a lot of very, very attractive pieces if you want to move on from one of those stars. And they have a bunch of draft picks and everything like that too, right? So they have a situation that they can kind of build this thing out. If you want to go out and make that big splash for a super duper star, you can go out and do that. I would be concerned about that a little bit because I do think, like I said, they have something growing out in Houston. They have built up that foundation that you need, and they have a lot of very talented kids on this group. And yes, like they probably needed a guy to close these games out. And a Kevin Durant, I think, works really well there. And Giannis probably fits what they're trying to do from a defensive standpoint a little bit better. But then you look at just how effectively all of these pieces kind of mesh together with Van Vliet and Brooks being the elder statesman, helping Thompson, who had an unbelievable series defensively and is, I think, just scratching the surface of what he can do on offense. And Şengün and Adams, and how they were beasts on the offensive rebounding side. It is tempting to say, okay, well, let's just package four things together, get a superstar, and that'll put us over the top. But we have seen, while again, understanding the picture over my shoulder with Kawhi, that sometimes it works. But more often than not, it hasn't. Why is Kevin Durant available? Because the last two spots that he has been that hired gun, it hasn't worked. So the spot that it did work was already an established foundation. And just not to go too deep into it, but you look at the Raptors. In 19, they obviously make the big trade, but is that they had that established foundation already going in. Houston does have that. You just don't want to rock it too much, pardon the pun, when you are bringing in one of these guys. So it is going to be very tempting to try to go out and make the big splash after big splash to get this team over the top. But this team finished second in the West, and no one batted an eye at that. I think they are very close to the top already. There was the other game 7 happened over on Saturday. Not going to go too in depth on it, but we'll preview the Denver series in a little bit. But the Denver Nuggets are able to battle their way through and make their way to the conference semifinals, which started yesterday as the Indiana Pacers and the why am I blank? Cleveland Cavaliers. There we go. Those teams faced off in the start of the second round, and just a perfect start for the Pacers. To get a win on the road is gigantic for this team. And they're a significant underdog in this. And I do think that it was them being, I think, overlooked a little bit in this series. And the thing that was kind of why, and we've talked about it here before, and it showed up in game 1. The defense on this team is different than it was a year ago. Again, this isn't Reggie Miller getting blocked at 69-67 of the fourth quarter. It's not like that lockdown type of a defense, but the defensive intensity has grown with this group from a season ago, and they have been able to battle through and get a number of different opportunities and create turnovers and create more offense off of that. And they still have a high-level offense, and they did a great job pushing off of makes for Cleveland, and now it'll be interesting to see how Cleveland kind of responds to that in this game. But it is the defense that sets this team up and sets them apart from the one that we saw in this playoff time a year ago. And another big part of it too, Tyrese Haliburton just stepped up in a monumental way when this team needed it. And there are still some times where things are starting to get a little bit sideways, and he's looking for that big dagger 3 to either get his team back into it or to take the other crowd out of it. And that's not where he is the most effective. He is the most effective getting into the lane and creating opportunities off of that. And then again, big guy stepping up in big time. Siakam made a couple of big shots early on to get this team settled into the game. Nembhard coming up again with a couple of very good offensive plays to get this team rolling. And the full effort on defense means that this is a series. This isn't going to be Cleveland just rolling through these guys. This is a series. And I do think now it's going to be very interesting to see the counterpunch from the Cleveland Cavaliers and kind of how they handle what the Pacers were trying to do to them, and how do you slow down that shooting stroke that Indiana had going so very well. So, I don't even think Cleveland played that bad of a game, to be honest. I was just so impressed with what Indiana did. I didn't think this was a lot of what Cleveland did wrong. I thought Mitchell, again, was attacking really effectively, getting into the paint, creating opportunities. You got a couple of depth guys missing some shots that you would have liked to see them hit, but Allen was just a monster on the defensive end, and his movement has gotten so much better. And Mobley, you can see the well-rounded nature of his game and how that has kind of developed. So, like, they played really well. The Pacers just played better in game one.